Hello, this video is to accompany Notes 8.4 and Homework 8.4. We're going to continue with our factoring of trinomials. This time we're factoring trinomials that are a little more complex, and you'll see how in just a moment. So if we want to factor this trinomial, we go through our normal steps. Is there a GCF? No, there's not. And I can tell that because 5 and 13 are both prime numbers. So they don't have any common factors with 6. So I'm going to set this up just by writing two binomials like we did in the previous lesson. The only difference, though, is now where I used to have just an x here and an x here because x times x equals x squared. Well, notice now it's not just x squared, it's 6x squared. Therefore, I have to have numbers in these blanks before the x, and those numbers have to equal 6. But which numbers do we put? We can put either 1 times 6, or we can put 2 times 3. We can also flip those around and make it 6 times 1, or 3 times 2. So the way we do this is we're going to draw columns underneath of the two binomials. So I did that with these red lines here. So I have a column here under my first term and a column here under my third term, because if I do first times first, it should equal 6. Then I listed all of my possible sets of factors. So I have 1 times 6, I have 2 times 3, 3 times 2, and 6 times 1. So those are my possible sets of factors that could go in these two blanks. But what about the second column and the fourth column? Well, that would be last times last, which is where we get the -5. And I'm for now going to ignore the signs and just call it a 5. So I need to put factors of 5 in these two columns. So that will look like this. My original polynomial is right here. I wrote it at the bottom. So we have last times last, which should equal 5. Now what we're going to do here is we will literally just start picking numbers. We guess and check. That's what this is called. So I'm just going to pick some numbers. I'm going to pick 6, 1, 1, 5. And what we would do is we would take the numbers we picked and write them in the binomials. And then we would have to pick signs, pluses or minuses, and when we multiply that out using FOIL, it should equal our original trinomial. So that's the plan of attack here. What we can't do, let me show you a big no-no on this. Let's say you pick this number, 3, and then you pick this number, you pick this number, and this number. I cannot do this because if I write these numbers in the polynomial, I get this, but now suddenly I have a first times first, which no longer equals 6. Remember, first times first must equal 6. So that means if I pick this 3, then I must pick this 2 to go along with it, because 3 times 2 is 6. So you can't just pick any old number. You have to pick numbers that make sense when you are doing FOIL. So here is, now I'm actually trying to solve it. And this is called guess and check. So you're probably going to pick numbers that are wrong the first time, or at least there's a good chance of it. And if they're wrong, you just erase your circles and pick different numbers. So I just picked these, 2, 1, 3, 5. So what we have to do is put signs in the binomials. So you could see I already wrote the numbers. So I put 2, 1, 3, 5. But now we want to pick signs. If I do outside times outside, I get 2 times 5, which is 10. Then if I do inside times inside, I get 1 times 3, which is 3. Now remember, when we combine the inside times inside and the outside times outside, we want it to equal positive 13. So what signs would I pick to make 10 and 3 combine together to equal positive 13? I could put a plus or a minus in front of either one of these. Well, clearly it would be positive 10 plus 3, which would give us positive 13. Since I want 10 to be positive and 3 to be positive, I would put a plus here because that's 1 times 3, which is 3. And I would put a plus here because that would give me outside times outside, 5 times 2x, which is 10x. So that gives me my positive 10 and my positive 3. All right, so I'm going to erase a lot of the mess here to keep it a little bit cleaner. So what I want to do is I want to actually multiply this out. So we're going to FOIL it. We're going to take these two binomials and multiply them together. And we should get our original trinomial. So let's try it. First times first gives me 6x squared. Outside times outside gives me plus 10x. Inside times inside gives me plus 3x. And then finally, last times last is positive 1 times positive 5, which is plus 5. Combine my like terms gives me 6x squared plus 13x plus 5. So here's what I get when I multiply the two binomials. However, I have a problem because the original polynomial has a minus 5. What I just did has plus 5. So this is the check part of guess and check. The numbers I picked when I circled these numbers here, they don't work. It looked like they work, but they don't. So we go back to the drawing board and we pick new numbers. So instead, let's try these numbers. So let's get our signs together and see if this works. If I do outside times outside, that gives me 15. If I do inside times inside, 1 times 2 gives me 2. Remember, we can pick either plus or minus for either number, and we want it to equal positive 13. So if I want this to equal positive 13, which signs would I choose? Clearly, I would choose positive 15 minus 2, because 15 minus 2 is 13. If I want my 15 to be positive, then that would mean I have to put a plus here, because that would give me positive 5 times positive 3, which is positive 15. If I want negative 2, then that means I need 2 times 1 to be negative, so I would put my minus here and get negative 1 times positive 2, which is negative 2. So now we have to check by foiling or multiplying the two binomials to see if this works. So I'm going to get rid of my extraneous marks here, and then let's multiply this out. Let's do first times first, 6x squared. Outside times outside gives me plus 15x. Inside times inside gives me minus 2x. And last times last gives me minus 5. If I combine these together, these two terms, I get 6x squared plus 13x minus 5. 6x squared plus 13x minus 5. If I scroll up, that is the correct answer because it matches the first trinomial. Okay, let's look at a couple of problems from the assignment. So this is number 4. First thing to notice, there is a GCF of 2. So this would leave me with 2p squared plus 9p plus 7. Next, set up my parentheses. And then I'm going to draw my columns. So let's start putting in our possible factors. Since I need first times first to equal 2p squared, I know there will be a p here and a p here, and we will put a number in front of the p's. That number could be either 1 times 2 or 2 times 1. For last times last, it must multiply to give you 7. That could be either 1 times 7 or 7 times 1. So if I just pick some numbers, I'm going to pick 2, 7, 1, 1, and I'm going to write them in. 2, 7, 1, 1. Let's see if it works. Let me erase the screen here to give me some room. So we need to put in our signs first. Notice in the original trinomial, everything's positive. So that's a clue that if this is going to work, these will both be pluses. And if I do inside times inside, that gives me positive 7p. If I do outside times outside, it gives me positive 2p. Well, 7p plus 2p is 9p, so this will work. And you can be certain of it by multiplying it out using FOIL, and let's do that. So this will give me, we'll hold on to this 2 in the front until later, but for now, let's just do first times first, which is 2p squared. Outside times outside is plus 2p. Inside times inside is plus 7p. And last times last is plus 7. Combine these two together to get 2p squared plus 9p plus 7. And that does match what we have up here. And then we will put the 2 in front. And if you distribute that, you'll end up with the original trinomial. Let's do one more that's a little more complex. There is no GCF on this one because of the 19. So let's write our columns. Put that out of the way. So this will give me 2 sets of parentheses. I know that I'm going to have an X here and an X here with numbers in front. And then let's put our columns. So I need factors of 6. The factors of 6 are 1 times 6, 2 times 3, 3 times 2, and 6 times 1. So those are the possible numbers that could go before X in first times first. Now I need factors of 36. Again, ignore the signs until later. We'll figure those out when we're done. So my factors of 36, well, I have 1 times 36. And notice I wrote these smaller because there's a bunch of them. I could do 2 times 18. I could do 3 times 12, 4 times 9, and 6 times 6. Now, one thing to note, notice I did not reverse those. I didn't reverse them because I did reverse the first times first. So all of these, I reversed them. So as long as you reverse one set of factors, you don't need to reverse the other set. So now it is time to guess and check. So you will literally go through this and pick some numbers. And you're going to plug them into your binomials and see if they work. Now, because I've already worked this one out, I already know which ones are the correct ones. But it took me a couple of minutes to figure it out. But anyway, here are the correct ones, if I can get my pen here. The correct factors are 3, 4, 2, and 9. So let's put those into the binomials. 3, 4, 2, and 9. Now let's put our signs. So our signs, since I have a negative 36 here, that tells me that the 4 times 9, one of them is going to be a positive, one will be a negative. But I'm not sure which one. However, when I do inside times inside and outside times outside, it has to equal negative 19. So let's look at those. Inside times inside. Inside times inside would be 4 times 2, which is 8. Outside times outside is 9 times 3, which is 27. Keep in mind that I can use either pluses or minuses on both of these, and it should equal negative 19 from our original trinomial. So would I use pluses or minuses? If I do positive 8 minus 27, it equals negative 19. So I need my 8 to be positive. So my 4 times 2 has to be positive, so I put the plus here. My 27 has to be negative, so my 9 times 3 should be negative, which means I put the minus here. And if you were to multiply this out using FOIL, you will get the original polynomial. And I'm not going to FOIL that one. You can just take my word on that or try it yourself. All right, so if you have any questions, send me a message on Remind, or even better, join the Zoom Math Help session at 2 p.m. on Tuesday or Thursday. Thank you, and I hope you guys have a good day. Stay safe.